You have just booted up the Switch 2 Ludic Lore Cast, Volume 3A Part 1, Mario Kart Spectacular, Examining Super through Double Dash.
Vroom vroom! We're kicking asphalt on our way to the winner's circle before getting a trophy spat out onto our head by a giant flying fish now. I'm Nick, the Nintendo nutcase who loves to juggle and chuckle green bottles of champagne after crushing my foes on the track. But only when I'm in Japan, because in America, it's all about slurping that sweet, sweet juice.
And I'm Mira, the Nintendo newcomer who journeyed through retro gaming hell and back to discover newfound appreciation for how good video games are in modern times.
That's right. Today on Volume 3A Part 1, we are zipping through the first 4 games in the Mario Kart series. Super Mario Kart for the Super Nintendo, Mario Kart 64 for the Nintendo 64, Mario Kart Super Circuit for the Game Boy Advance, and Mario Kart Double Dash Double Exclamation Point for the Nintendo GameCube. There's no better way to run out the clock while waiting for the Switch 2 than by binging this episode, if we do say so ourselves. So without any further delay, let's friggin' go!
Ready?
Set? Here we are, finally, the first episode of the show where we get to play and talk about some... Hold on, what's this? Let me check my notes. Something called video games? Is that right?
Can be right.
It can't be right. That's not this show.
Are we done with the marketing?
There is already another rumored Nintendo Direct right around the corner, but that's okay because we are talking about the entire Mario Kart series pre-Mario Kart World. This has been so much fun to play through these with you because, well, naturally, I've played every single one of these games front to back to completion many times over throughout the years. You have never played a Mario Kart game other than Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Yes, and after doing my marketing homework, I finally got to see what you've been playing since you were a child.
Yeah? That explain a lot about how I am today?
I never really put much thought into that.
Probably for the best. You're all going to have a great time listening to her perspective because it's quite unusual. Some of the opinions she was throwing at me were, some takes I was not expecting to hear, but that's the joy of having the newcomer looking through these games in a lens that I can't see because I'm too deep in it, as well as many of you who have played these games also throughout your lives. So let's just jump right in with the first game in the series, 1992's Super Mario Kart. Do you want to say anything up front, or should I set the stage a little?
Gamers first.
Gamers first. I don't think that's how the phrase goes, but here on the Switch 2 Ludic Lore Cast, it's gamers first, women and children second. Oh no. Oh no.
You could try to cut that, or keep it for the fun.
We'll see how funny it sounds in post. First thing about this game, of course, the box art, which I think is great. It's hand-drawn art of all the characters on a racetrack, very animated, lots of good quality expressions from your favorite Mario characters. You, however, didn't seem too hot on the box art, and hint, hint, That might be a running theme for how she feels throughout the entirety of Super Mario Kart.
No, I was appreciative of it.
So you like the box art for Super Mario Kart?
Yeah, but you know how it is. What's inside matters.
That's true, but imagine yourself as a kid in the early 90s and you saw the cover for Super Mario Kart in the video game aisle. Would that catch your eye? Is it good enough to make you want to play it?
That's for sure. I would have been at least intrigued. I don't know if I would have had the console to be able to play it, but I would have for sure asked my parents to buy it for me.
Yeah. And if you didn't have the console, hey, at least you could flip through the nice colored instruction manual and see some pictures.
Yeah, or at least I can play with the box. For the rest, just use your imagination.
Exactly. What more do you need? Well, I guess you kind of do need the system, but different strokes for different folks. I never had Super Mario Kart, and I never really asked for any Super Nintendo games. It wasn't until the 64 era where I actually was aware of what was coming out and knew what I was interested in to ask for. So all throughout the Super Nintendo era, I was at the mercy of whatever my parents got me, which thankfully they got me some good stuff. But fun recollection about Super Mario Kart. I played through it the first time, I believe, on the Wii Virtual Console sometime in 2007 or 8. But I had played Super Mario Kart exactly once before in my life. And if you remember from Volume 0, I tell quite the tale of a child who comes into my house, plays with my Mario 64 file, deletes my stars, and then I cast a black magic voodoo hex on him.
And then he's not anymore to be called my friend.
What's he called?
Your enemy, I guess.
That's true. He was not my friend. He was my enemy. But me inviting him over to play Mario 64 was reciprocal, because a couple weeks before that, he invited me over to his house. His family hadn't upgraded to the 64 yet, so we played Super Mario Kart on the Super Nintendo. And that was kind of the entirety of our whole friendship. It was a brief month sometime in the summer of 97. Oh, such magical memories.
So there were some happy memories you have with said friend.
Not really, because his parents were smokers and they would smoke inside the house and it smelled bad. It was a dirty room.
You had to use a knife to cut the air just to see the screen.
Yes, had to cut through the smoke just to see what was going
You're
on.
a passive smoker. Your voice just thickening after a series of playing Mario Kart.
Maybe they were doing it for the effects. Maybe they're chain smoking because, hey, it's like you're at the racetrack and you're smelling the smoke from the exhaust pipes. Maybe that's the charitable reading. But also, I was not a Nintendo connoisseur at this age of my life. I like Nintendo games, but I didn't have a full-blown obsession. So at the time, I wasn't like, oh, this old game from 5 years ago I've never played? Cool. I'm onto 3D gaming. I'm onto Mario 64. What do you mean I'm coming over to your house and all you have for me is Super Mario Kart?
You're once a Nintendo newcomer.
Yeah. So after the box art, we fire this game up. We're on to the start screen, which is notable because it's very fun, just like the box art. It's vibrant, it's colorful, it's whimsical. In the sky, in the background, press B is written as if God himself has authored the instructions for this game into the fabric of the universe. And beneath all of that, you have a fun line of your different playable characters driving left to right in their carts, and some shenanigans ensue. A banana peel is thrown at some point. There's maybe a bit of a spinning out, you know. So far, this is looking promising, right? Good box art, fun, inviting startup screen. You thinking you're going to have a good time at this point?
Why not? What would go wrong?
You tell me, what could go wrong?
Well, I should start by saying to begin with that if I had played this game when I was 7, then I could have thought that I reached peak in gaming.
Yes.
But after playing something like Mario Kart 8, doesn't feel like that at all. And I do like vintage, but I just thank God technology evolution did not stop. I am eternally grateful for that, because this game, I didn't feel like I raced, I endured.
You endured. That's an important character trait too. A good life lesson. If you can endure Super Mario Kart, you can endure anything.
Yeah, I still have no idea what's up with the controllers because you offered me the chance to play with the original controllers,
Right.
which I thought that's awesome. But I really don't know what's up with the buttons I was playing and the screen. There are parallel entities that just refuse to cooperate. And pair that with my limited skill in gaming.
Limited skill that translates to you not understanding the controller layout, which makes sense because you've only used Switch controllers and I guess the Xbox controller when you were playing 2 Point Hospital. But these retro controllers are pretty different. And I have the Super Nintendo replica controller for the Switch, so I thought it'd be interesting if she played Super Mario Kart with the original Super NES controller. And when you say the buttons didn't align to what was happening on the screen, what do you mean by that?
It gave me the impression that the whole race was slippery and I didn't have as much control as I was expecting it. But of course, it doesn't help to have Mario Kart 8 as reference.
Yes. And I don't think that was the controller's fault. That's just the game itself is much harder to control. And yeah, it can feel a lot more slippery, especially when you're going around corners with all the turns, trying to avoid obstacles. You don't have that hairpin precision that you get with the control stick in some of the later entries.
Yeah, I'm still very glad that I got to play it because beyond controllers, I can see how Super Mario Kart is innovative, and I did find out that this game particularly expanded the whole Mario series into non-platforming games.
Yeah.
And me having knowledge only of the Super Mario Bros.
Right.
With the 2D, I got to first experience even something like the use of Mode 7 graphics. And the way the pixels were playing on the screen when I was falling. And I did fall quite
Yes, you
more
did.
times than I wanted.
Uh-huh. Thankfully, your buddy Lakitu is there with the cloud and the fishing rod to hoist you back up, put you safely nice on the track so you can continue your fun time in Super Mario Kart.
I wouldn't necessarily say it was a fun time because once you fall, you're long gone, my dear.
That's one of the many issues, exactly. If you make one mistake, that can be all it takes to put you from first or second into fifth, sixth, below that even. And it can be nearly impossible to claw your way back, especially if you're at speeds higher than 50 cc.
In regards to those CCs, I did my due diligence of finding out what they mean.
Okay, yeah.
Because I knew it's the more CC, the crazier it goes. But
My understanding is it's an engine weight class that determines the speed of the cart.
exactly, the cubic centimeters. And
Oh,
I'm so
it's-
glad I get to talk about European measurement units.
Is that meant to be the literal size of the engine?
The displacement volume of the engine, and of
Oh.
course, the larger this volume, the more power of the engine.
Huh.
Super Mario Kart. Dare I say, I couldn't really grasp the super in it. Compared to everything I have played after, the first one, it felt kind of lacking for 3 super reasons. I'll give you that.
Oh, sure. 3 super reasons why Super Mario Kart isn't so super?
Yeah, you know, it was super pixelated.
Sure.
For me, not being used to play retro games, I was having trouble with long distance visuals, and
Yes.
I just thought I need a lot of good luck to decipher the background only, and good luck in general with the controllers and the whole play.
Yeah, it is very tricky to discern the background, and Mode 7, extremely impressive technology where it can do a pseudo 3D effect in a two-dimensional game.
Impressive at that time, or impressive
Yes.
as we speak now.
I still find it impressive because I know the technological context of the era, and I've played tons of games from that time period, and only a few use Mode 7, so it does make it stand out. This was also used in F-Zero, Star Fox, Yoshi's Island, a handful of other classic Nintendo games. Essentially, it allows you to drive into the foreground. 2D driving game, it might just be left to right, or a lot of times it'd be an aerial top-down view. But this behind the back going into the foreground thanks to Mode 7. That's the only reason this game was even possible on the Super Nintendo. But if you try to look too far back into the course, it is just too pixely to make out what is coming. And what I have to do, I have my eyes trained a certain way for games like this, where I just let them relax and focus on the peripheral of the course up to an inch or two ahead of the cart, but not so far ahead that it goes super far into the distance where it just pixelates into a blurry mess.
That was your secret, relaxing your eyes?
You have to know where to look in order to read the screen properly, because if you're looking too far ahead, you cannot make heads or tails of it, and those turns will sneak up on you and you won't have enough time to react.
Yeah, I clearly didn't know how to look. I just squinted my eyes. It felt like looking through a kaleidoscope on a foggy day.
Yeah.
And the colors look like a coloring book that was made by someone on speed, to be sincere, and going through a midlife crisis. Like, it didn't make much sense.
Yeah.
Very hard to follow the whole trace and even to see the characters.
Your character, whoever you're playing as, is fine to see because they're the same size in the middle of your screen at all times. But if you're passing other characters or seeing other characters ahead of you that you're trying to get ahead of to climb the ranks, it can be very hard to make out how far away they are. Sometimes it's hard to even make out what character it is, let alone, of course, any obstacles that are coming up that you need to react to. It can be hard to see where those are or what those are until the last minute.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you become number 8 again.
Then it's too late, right?
Yeah. So with that in mind, I'll go to my second super because of that.
Gimme.
Super disorienting. The accessibility I was talking about, you had no chance. I've had Romanian stray dogs that were more welcoming when they were following me on the street than the chances I got from this controller.
Wow.
At least I knew I had some hope, some room for negotiation with, mind you, animals than those controllers. Like, I drove into a lake a few times. You've seen me.
Yep.
First of them were unintentionally, then out of sheer existential dread, just for playing it. And the fact that there wasn't even any release, because I could just get shoot back into the game. With those controllers, feeling like the game was punishment sent to make you suffer.
The disorientation comes from not only the pixelated graphics with the Mode 7 effect, for me at least, tell me if you feel similarly, but another big reason for the disorientation is how many turns and twists there are in the tracks. And when your character keeps turning and the whole course is rotating on the screen in front of you to accommodate these turns, to keep up with the graphical style and effect, it kind of feels like you're tipsy. It feels like you're a little drunk and the whole world is spinning around you as you're trying to tackle these turns on the course.
It also felt, with the tracks, pretty repetitive.
Yes, oh boy.
Kind of very much boring.
Yeah.
It wasn't so engaging as I was expecting it,
Yep.
but the music was okay.
The music is interesting. I like a few of the melodies. I especially like the melodies that have some of that whistling. Do-do-do-do-do. That's a very weird, unique instrumentation to use for a video game soundtrack. But this is a issue I have with a lot of Super Nintendo games. There are some all-time great soundtracks on that system, but I think a lot of the MIDI synthetic instrumentation that they had to use for the sound chip makes the music sound a little soupy, stretched and strained and ever so slightly distorted. Not in the same way as the Game Boy Advance sound chip, but I've always felt like the Game Boy Advance sound chip is so bad that the Super Nintendo sound chip seems fantastic in comparison. But there are just some sound fonts used in the system, including in Super Mario Kart, that just make it unpleasant-ish to listen to. And the best way to see this is if you're listening to a song from Super Mario Kart, and then you listen to the same song re-recorded for Mario Kart 8. Obviously, using real live instruments and the way they punch up the melodies does a ton, but having high-quality instrumentation really makes these music tracks stand out in a way that the original hardware just could not capture.
And here it doesn't help that I did hear the music from Chrono Triggers.
Yeah, the all-time great Super Nintendo soundtrack. And that game, the sound font works better for me.
I also found out there is the possibility to drift
Yeah.
in this game.
It's difficult, though, isn't it?
It is.
I couldn't even pull it off. I didn't even realize it had drift until I was researching it later because I tried, and I don't think they have drift in this game. And then I looked it up. It's like, oh, no, they do. It's just the way you pull it off is much different. The timing is much trickier.
And it's giving you a mini turbo boost.
Mm-hmm. In addition to the boost at the start, when Lakitu's counting down with the lights, 3, 2, 1, go. In this one, you have to push it between the first and second lights at a specific point. So it feels wrong having to press it that much earlier in the sequence. And I didn't really get the hang of the timing for that either.
Yeah, I just found out about it right now.
Yeah. But it is nice that these core features were in the series from the very original. The speed boost at the beginning, the drifting, of course, a bunch of the items, the themed tracks, even though we'll get to that in a minute, how flat that falls. But the Grand Prix 4 cups. In this one, there are 5 courses per cup. But the whole structure of the series was pretty firmly established right from the first game, which I think is impressive, especially given how relatively poorly Super Mario Kart holds up compared to the rest of the franchise.
And speaking about poorly, my third point, why it's not super, and the problem that was bothering the most, it was super stiff. It was super stiff in the way that not only had controllers, like, okay, I'm not the person to be playing this game and do a good job from the beginning.
Yeah.
But as I told you, it felt like punishment more than a game. You make a single mistake and there's not an ounce of forgiveness. You get sent to the pixelated purgatory, having to catch again. But not only that, you're basically done. You might as well just leave the controller, go make a sandwich, because you have to finish the race by yourself, the whole lap as a single player, lonely, while everyone else is just gone. Not only that, but if you and your friend doesn't rank at least the 4th place, the game just throws you into this sadistic time loop of the very same course over and over again until one of you makes it to the podium. It's like you're not playing for fun, you're playing to escape.
Playing to escape the game.
Yeah.
Just get me out of this cup. This was a pretty clear-cut difference compared to the later entries, where it is much more focused on accessibility and fun for everyone. You can get last place every race. That's fine. We just want you having fun playing the whole time. Here, like you said, we were playing multiplayer the whole time, right? So just me and you versus the 6 other CPU players. If both of us got 5th place or lower, we have to redo the race. But if one of us got in the top 4 but the other didn't, that person loses a life. And you have 3 lives. And this happened once. There was a point where it was the 4th race. You had gotten lower than 4th the first 3. So you had lost all of your lives. So then you had a game over. So I had to do the final 2 races by myself while you watched and did nothing. You weren't even allowed to participate in the final 2 races because they had a life system and you lost all of your lives in Mario Kart.
That didn't even bother me at all because I wouldn't call that a life. So.
It's just wild that they had a life system in the first Mario Kart, and I had completely forgotten about that. Just carrying over from Super Mario Brothers and other similar games. Well, yeah, you have lives, so you lose all your lives, you get a game over. Why wouldn't that be in Mario Kart?
And cherry on top, or the Raspberry Prize, however it's called with the movies, I just found this game so mean. It gave me the feeling, if I was a child, I could sincerely think this game just hates its players.
Wow. Did you have anything else for your super point number 3?
That would be all my super point number 3.
Okay. The stiffness of the controls is definitely something you have to get used to. And I was telling you a trick, quote unquote, that I use. I'm not sure how well it translated. I said, Darling, you need to feather the D-pad.
Whatever that means.
Start feathering. Having trouble, all you need to do is feather.
Feather what? Am I a bird or what?
I don't even know if that's the correct usage of the term.
Well, clearly not, because I didn't feather.
Yeah, you didn't feather the D-pad or the accelerator, so the idea is you don't want to have your thumb on the left or right D-pad at all times. Sometimes you need to have your thumb completely off of the D-pad, so you're feathering it left and right, back and forth to get your cart in a straight line or to tackle the curves without veering too far. And it's the same way with the accelerator. If you have the accelerator held down the entire time, as you do in modern Mario Karts, you basically never take your finger off the go button in modern Mario Kart games. But in this one, Super Mario Kart, you definitely need to feather the D-pad, take your thumb off of the accelerator, and hop to do some of these turns and keep your momentum and keep going straight. It's a combination of those three techniques that allow you to play the game with some semblance of skill and competitiveness, but those are so advanced for someone who has never played a retro game before like this, and the learning curve is really high, and you have to dedicate yourself to figuring out the controls, and you have to get an element of muscle memory down before you're even good enough to enjoy the game for what it is.
This reminds me of learning the manual gear on real cars.
Uh-huh. Sure. There are some other interesting things about Super Mario Kart. It's not all bad.
So you say.
At the very least, some of this stuff is neutral, if not good. In single player, the screen is still split into two. So there's still a top screen and a bottom screen, even if there's not a second player controlling someone on the bottom screen. That's just always been a weird, quirky thing about the original Mario Kart that has stood out to me, because it forces you into split screen, even if you're playing single player. Weird.
It forces you to invite a friend.
Maybe that's part of it.
Or make some.
Yeah, because this game can be unpleasant even with someone, but way less fun when you're playing by yourself. The item blocks, they're just flat question mark block textures on the road. They're not three-dimensional objects you drive through. They're flat panels that you drive over to activate. Not as satisfying as driving through a three-dimensional item block.
No, that didn't bother me at all because it had this element of surprise.
It didn't bother me. I just found it curious, since that's the only time we will see that version of the Mario Kart item box. But you thought it was a nice surprise just because you didn't know what item you were going to get?
Yes, question mark on the ground, exclamation point on how I used to use those items.
And some of them are not all that fun in this first one. Red Shell, always helpful. Superstar, your favorite.
Yes, I just love the vibe of the Superstar.
You love that theme, that jingle.
I think it's the best jingle of every Mario game. And I'm really glad that they kept it.
It's great that it's been in there since the very first Super Mario Brothers, and it's been in almost every Mario game since. But your banana peels, your green shells, it feels so good to nail another character with a green shell in Mario Kart because it doesn't automatically home in, so you have to manually aim it. It is almost worthless in Super Mario Kart, so difficult it is. You have to be basically right behind someone. So really, to me, it was just the red shell and the Superstar that were the exciting items of the first game. You do also have the lightning bolt, which is always fun, and the mushroom, which gives you a speed boost. But again, there are so many twists and turns on these courses that the mushroom, to me, was more of a hindrance, because whenever I would use it, I would end up in the grass or off the track. The time I gained from boosting was more than lost by the amount of time I would take to recover from veering off course. The coins. There are coins on the track that you pick up. Do you know what happens when you pick up a coin?
You get a boost.
Yes, but it's not a temporary boost. For each coin you have, your cart goes 0.8% to 1% faster. This is depending on the character.
This one was one of the aspects that I did find out about in the end, but I didn't really see why you would want to have different...
Why you would want different stats for your characters?
Yeah, like why would you have characters with different stats? That would impact the way you're gaming.
it's meant to be for gameplay variety, but I'm with you in the sense that I would never choose a character based on the stats. I only choose the characters based on who I like to play as.
Me too.
The big downside are the lightweight characters in these early games, because if you bump into something, the lightweight characters, they get out of alignment way more severely. If someone bumps into Donkey Kong Jr., he might tilt a little, but if somebody's ramming into Toad or Koopa Troopa, they're going to veer way off, and it can be much harder to recover. And so they go faster, but it's more tricky to play as, and I would be fine if they all played the same, but that's just not how it is. I'm sure plenty of people like the variety, and I guess the idea is to add a layer of strategy.
Is Mario Kart 8 and the future one based on the type of vehicle you're using, or is it still character-based for the stats?
It's both. So the character still has their own weight class, and then, of course, there are the 3 different customizable parts to assemble your kart.
So 2 characters on the same cart with the same accessories will have different stats.
If one is a heavy and one is a light. I think it's still just light, medium, and heavy are the 3 character weight classes, but I'll have to look that up to confirm. The differences feel pretty slight in the modern games. To me, it was more of an issue with the early ones. But I always play the heavies, so...
And I always play Mario.
You always play Mario, which is fine, because he's balanced to be the jack of all trades.
And master of none, based on how I played.
Yes. But I was big boy Donkey Kong Jr., who is the son of Cranky Kong and the father of the Donkey Kong we all know and love. And it was a real treat to play as Donkey Kong Jr. because he's in so few games. He was in this Mario Kart game. I think he was in the Virtual Boy Mario Tennis, and then Mario Tennis 64. But other than that, in these Mario spin-offs, it's Donkey Kong the Third, Donkey Kong Jr.'s son. And Donkey Kong Jr. just has a big, stupid onesie. He wears a big, dumb, white onesie. It makes me laugh. So it was a real treat getting to play as DK Jr. in Super Mario Kart. Other than that, it's the same 8 characters basically as the first handful of games, with the exception of having DK Jr. instead of Donkey Kong, and then they have Koopa Troopa instead of Wario. At the time, though, 8 characters, it was probably super exciting to choose from. Now it's like, I don't really want to play as any of these characters. None of these characters are my mains. There are a few more things to touch on, and you hinted at this, but the courses. The courses are so weak in this game.
Courses?
The tracks that you're driving on.
No, courses.
The courses, yeah.
Curses.
Curse these courses. There are a handful of categories. There's the grassy plains category, the beach category, the Choco category, which is supposed to be chocolate, but just looks like disgusting, filthy, dirty mud. The Bowser's Castle theme, the Haunted theme, and then there's a Rainbow Road. Really, I like one beach course. The very first beach course is kind of cool because it's simple enough to not be frustrating, and it's your first time seeing the beach vibes. The grassy plains levels are just boring, generic. There is very little Mario theming in any of these. They do not look like locations from the Mushroom Kingdom at all. The Bowser Castle level, there's lava, of course, and there are some thwomps, but that's it. Those are the only 2 things that would indicate any sort of relation to Bowser. The haunted levels, based off of the Boo houses in Super Mario World, I do like those because, again, the theming is spooky-ish, and I like the music. And then Rainbow Road is cool because it's the original. I've played that Rainbow Road so many times because it is also in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. But there are 20 courses total, and I like maybe 3 of the courses, and even those 3 I don't like that much. It's dire. I think it is dire, the state of the levels. They're so unmemorable, and they're just not very fun to play. Specifically, okay, the 2 worst ones are Vanilla Lake 1 and Vanilla Lake 2. Those courses are terrible. Those are the icy snow sorts of courses where the terrain is slippery because you're on ice, and then there will be these white snow blocks that just look like flat white rectangles on the ground. They can be really hard to avoid, and if you bump into one of them, they disappear, but it halts your momentum as if you crash into a wall. They are not a fun obstacle to navigate. So Vanilla Lake 1 is a square layout with these narrow passages you have to drive through, and Vanilla Lake 2 has this oddly shapen ice lake in the middle, and there are pools of water you have to drive around or hop over, but there's a lot of jagged edges to this lake, so they're not smooth turns. They suck to navigate. They are not fun. So Koopa Beach 1, Ghost Valley 1, and Rainbow Road are the 3 courses I kind of like. And I could leave Ghost Valley and Koopa Beach behind and really just take Rainbow Road. To me, that's the only important course of this game, is the original Rainbow Road. The rest of them, generic, forgettable, not very fun to drive on.
I agree, and I understand that they did a great job with what they had, but, it's like in painting. Van Gogh used to be a horrible painter in the beginning, rather clumsy to the point where he was frustrated with his lack of initial talent up to when he developed. And I can see also that the games were impressive at the time, and they were considered
good to great. This game
best games of all the time. But there are different times.
Right. Yeah. Super Mario Kart is not a game people today would say is one of the best games of all time, like they might with Super Mario Brothers or Super Mario World from that era or earlier. But nobody had played anything like this. And it is, I almost said it is fun. You can see how fun would have been had, especially back then.
I mean, definitely. As a child with having this as my only game, I would have probably been mind blown.
Yeah. And you would have played it enough to get good at it, so it wouldn't have been pure frustration the whole time. Which brings us to our second to last point here, the battle mode. It's not just racing, there is also balloon battle from the very first game. Now, you can only do 1v1, and so there are 4 battle maps, and it's a little boring in the sense that the pacing is super duper off, since there's only one opponent to go after. And what I would do, I would go to the center of these battle arenas and just hop in a circle, turning around until I spotted you in the distance and then drive towards you that way. That was the only way I knew how to reliably locate where you were to go chase you down and try to hit you with an item.
And up to the moment you shared that with me, I could barely see you.
Mm-hmm. The only way I could see you sometimes is because you were the only object in the background that was moving. If you had been sitting still in your cart, at certain distances, you would have just blended in and looked like a background object.
If we ever are to play this game again, that's gonna be my trick.
Sure. Just hiding in the camouflage.
Just wait for you in a pixelated corner.
But you liked battle mode, right?
I loved it.
Yeah. It's not the most fun version of battle mode, but considering, again, the template Super Mario Kart laid out, the fact that battle mode was also here from the very first game, pretty foundational for the rest of the series. And it just shows a lot of these ideas were timeless. It was just the execution of these ideas left a lot to be desired in 1992. Now, one idea that I think was executed on perfectly, something that I alluded to in my intro that you told me you did not understand, which is the award ceremony in Super Mario Kart. It's the top 3 racers. You get on a podium, a big fat flying cheap soars over your head and spits a trophy out. Very weird. But in the Japanese version, some of the characters have champagne. And Bowser, for example, will have a champagne bottle, and he will start pouring it in his mouth and just chugging it, and bubbles of champagne will be running down his chin like he's some sort of alcoholic degenerate. Fits in very nicely with the character. And most hilariously is Princess Peach, who starts standing on the podium. She takes one sip, and then her face gets red, and then she just keeps chugging. But when her face turns to that shade of red, that is them conveying Peach is now drunk. Princess Peach is getting ripped. She's getting hammered on the podium, and it's hilarious. But of course, when they localized it, they changed that to juice. So you're no longer drinking champagne in Super Mario Kart, unless you're playing the Japanese version. But in our version, no, they're just juggling bottles of sweet, sweet juice.
That's wild. And I've seen the redness in the cheeks of the babushkas as I was a child, seeing them how they got suddenly colored after one beer or anything,
Yeah.
a shot.
I was trying to figure out, is this sexist or is this empowering? Because on the one hand, Peach is the only female character, and for her to stand up there and immediately get blasted, drink herself into a stupor, you can interpret it as, wow, this one girl character is very irresponsible and she's the alcoholic. Not even Bowser's getting drunk and he's chugging like a maniac. On the other hand, this lady just showed all the boys what's up. She whooped their butts, and now she's just gonna have a good time, let loose, let her hair down. Competition's over, and she's just gonna have a good time getting hammered out there. You can read it either way, but I like to think Peach is kicking booty and taking names, and then just pre-gaming before she goes dancing at the club to celebrate her victory.
After such a hard game, well deserved.
Exactly, yeah.
But none of the characters whatsoever in the US version is having any champagne.
Nope, that would be immoral. You don't
So-
want children to see their favorite characters drinking alcohol.
Yeah, and that felt when I've seen the tiniest trophy, like probably the most passive-aggressive trophy in the gaming history. It was so small, it looked like a thimble.
Uh-huh. It is small. It looked like an insult, and this flying fish is spitting it out at you, which is also rather rude. But that's Super Mario Kart. Any final thoughts on the origin of the Mario Kart series?
I said what I said.
And you're just glad to be done with this game, presumably forever.
For sure, forever.
Here we go. Now we're entering into the good stuff. Maybe. We'll see how you feel. 1997's Mario Kart 64. Released 1996 in Japan, but the North American version 1997, almost 5 years after the original. And what a glow up between Super Mario Kart and Mario Kart 64. How'd you feel about this one?
This one was for sure better. A little smoother, a little more merciful. I did not forget about the awful time I had with the previous games, so this one gave me at least a slight hope. However, I do have to say that the races for some reason felt longer.
Definitely. Even though the track length, you're only doing 3 laps instead of 5 laps. But a lot of the courses feel longer, and I'm not sure if they are. I mean, individual laps are longer. Maybe some of the overall races are similar in time just because you're doing fewer laps.
So it was less of the pixelated purgatory of the Super Mario Kart and more of a quarantine. It felt less boring, but
Yeah.
again, once you are falling off the bridge, the whole race is lost for you.
Yes, it's also difficult to recover. Not as difficult as Super Mario Kart, but you make a couple of mistakes. and
Or
they-
one mistake.
Or one, depending on how big the mistake is, and it can cost you the rest of the race. But backtracking a little, the box art for this game, Attitude. It's got some 3D renders of your boys Mario, Wario, etc. And they're looking tough. They're looking ready to race. And then you get to the title screen. It's go time. It's not very lighthearted. It really sells the competitive spirit of the game. And then you go into the menu and you get this very nice jazzy piano bass percussion song as you cruise through the menus, selecting your gameplay mode of choice. This is a great song. I love this song.
I didn't even pay much attention to the box art or the song because I was solely focused on how I'm gonna do this game
Yeah. Okay.
after the very nice, super fun previous
Super
game.
fun. Well, Super Mario Kart doesn't beat out Mario Kart 64 in many categories, but for me, the box art and title screen, they're better in Super Mario Kart. But that's minor stuff. Before we get into the courses, which are a gigantic step up, there are some key gameplay refinements here, starting with the drift, which is still hard to pull off, harder than modern games, because you can't hold it indefinitely as you're going around a turn. And if you hold it for too long, your cart will just veer back in the direction you're holding the stick. But it starts off with puffs of smoke coming out of your exhaust. It starts with a white V cloud of smoke, and then it turns into a yellow E-shape cloud of smoke, and then the E-shape turns red once you're holding the boost long enough, and that's when you let go to get the boost. But the timing is relatively tight. I kept holding it past the red, and then I would lose the boost, because in Mario Kart 8, I like to hold that drift as long as I can around the whole curve, boom, right at the last second. Still, though, it's an improvement over the timing of the drift in Super Mario Kart, and, of course, the big improvement, the start boost. You're finally hitting the accelerator before the third light. That just feels right. It feels way better than hitting the accelerator between lights 1 and 2. And the timing for the boost is not the exact same in every game across the series, but starting with Mario Kart 64, it feels much closer to the timing we're all comfortable with. The turns can still be tough and slippery, but having the control stick instead of a D-pad does allow for much finer movement. The controls are less stiff. It can still be easy to veer off track, especially when you're coming to terms with how it plays. But the other big introduction to this game is rubber banding. You familiar with this term at all?
Sounds somewhat familiar, but I don't remember what it is.
Yeah, this is a bigger deal when you're playing by yourself, but basically certain computer players that you're racing against will catch up with you in ways that are unfair. Basically, they cheat.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And the idea is to make it more exciting, more competitive, so you're not just in first and you leave them all behind and then you have no excitement during the rest of the track. It will assign you a rival character with this Grand Prix. Whoever your rival is likely to get in the top 3 places. If you beat them out, they'll still get second or third, so that they're your main competition. And if they get hit with a red shell, well, guess what? They recover a lot faster than you do. So it's an interesting gameplay mechanic. They do take rubber banding too far in future games. I think in Mario Kart 64, the level of rubber banding is not perfect, but it didn't grate on me very much. I got Mario 64 for Christmas of 97, so it was my first Mario Kart game that I owned. I played a ton of single player, and eventually, especially 50 and 100cc, I did get good enough to where I was in first most of the time, even with the rubber banding. And that does get relatively boring when you're just in first and you're not dodging items and not trying to stage a cool comeback. So I understand why rubber banding is in the game. But I guess when we were just playing, the two of us, it didn't really come into play because we were just trying to get top 4, because again, one of you has to get top 4 in order to progress. Thankfully, this time there are no lives, so you can't get a game over.
Unfortunately.
One last note before we hit the courses: the presentation, the voice clips, the animations. You mentioned I'm a Wario guy, okay? Wario's my main in Mario Kart 64. When you select Wario in the character select screen, he pulls his mustache out, cocks his eyebrows, and grins. And, of course, says his iconic line, "I'm a Wario, and I'm gonna win." It's very charming, and every character has their own unique little animation when you select them and their voice line. And then when we played battle mode, and you beat me, we played 5 rounds, you won 3, I won 2. Wario's picture, he has his hat in his mouth, chewing on it, pulling it down from his teeth in anger. He is so red. He is so peeved off. My favorite thing from these little voice clips, when you veer off course or crash into an item or get hit with a shell or whatever, the character will make some sort of expression of discontent, and Wario will go, "Wah!" But when you get hit by lightning, everybody's voice is pitched up several octaves. So getting hit by lightning and hearing Wario go, "Wah!" cracked me up every time. It is so stupid and just really immerses me in the vibe of the world.
Is this also the game where I venture into playing Wario at one of the races and you thought it was you?
Uh-huh. There are only 4 cups in this. We played all of them, but one of them she chose Wario, and I believe I chose Donkey Kong. And I'm so used to, specifically with Mario Kart 64, seeing Wario on the screen that it just didn't really register that she had chosen my character. So for the first half of the first lap of whatever race we were doing, I was watching her screen, and I was thinking something was wrong with my controller.
You're just tickling that wall.
The character's still going, but the buttons aren't really corresponding, and halfway through I realize, wait a minute, this isn't even my character, and I look, and stupid dumpy donkey,
Still tickling that wall.
idiot donkey is just 5 feet from the starting line, just turned into a wall, occasionally accelerating into it. Like, oh, great. But the real star of Mario Kart 64, the levels. The racetracks are a gigantic improvement over Super Mario Kart. Night and day, you could say.
Or how I say, earth, ground, and sky difference.
Yes, earth, ground, and sky difference. I have a list of levels I want to talk about, certain elements from, but before I get into my list, did you have any levels that stood out to you?
I lost so many, my dear. I barely remember any.
Yeah, and you played all of these one time. I've played these courses hundreds of times. Just throughout the years, I played Mario Kart 64 a ton as a kid, but I'm very familiar with all of these. So it makes sense that after just playing each one time, you don't have a grasp of all the finer details. But you start off with the Mushroom Cup, the very first one, Luigi Raceway. And before the countdown even begins, there are a ton of colorful balloons raising up from behind the starting line. Makes it exciting, makes it seem like a day at the racetracks. It's celebratory, it feels like a big event. Again, huge step up in presentation.
You know, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah?
So focused I was on the upcoming anxiety of another game where it's all slippery.
Yeah, and that's something that's inherent to a lot of Mario Kart. I really picked up on this with Mario Kart 8. There are so many fun details in the background of these courses, but you're focusing on the action so much that you can really miss almost everything. You can miss a ton of the love and care that went into the backgrounds to make it more fun and immersive.
So that's where they hide the love.
Oh, no.
Clearly not any for the players.
Well, I think this is where our opinions might start to diverge, because I like Mario Kart 64 a good bit.
Yeah, it was a little more merciful, more smooth, but for the races, once you're falling off the bridge, again, you lost.
You lost, that's right. But Luigi Raceway, first track, very gentle, lot of greenery. It's a good way to ease you into the game. And in addition to the balloons at the beginning, there is a hot air balloon with Luigi's face on it that dips down into the track on laps 2 and 3. And if you hop at the exact right time, when the hot air balloon is at its lowest point, you can grab the item box beneath the hot air balloon, and in the item box every time is the spiny shell, better known as the blue shell. But I think that's cool. You can get a guaranteed blue shell on the first track of this game if you jump at a very specific point under this hot air balloon. The other thing of note about Luigi Raceway, this is where they start putting signs on the side of the track. And this has become one of my favorite details in future Mario Karts because these signs will correspond to in-universe locations, brands, companies, services. In Mario Kart 64, they haven't really developed that level of universe building yet. So there are just signs that say Luigi. Another stretch of signs that just say Yoshi. This is where you see the seeds of them putting in-universe branding across the racetracks.
I really thought that's some advertisement placement.
Product placement. Yeah, that's the other thing in modern games. Not in Nintendo games, but in a lot of modern games, these billboards would be actual paid brand advertisements from real-life companies. Last little detail about Luigi Raceway, there's a Jumbotron screen showing footage of the race at the entrance of the tunnel you drive through. And I remember that detail really sticking out as a kid, feeling, again, immersive. At actual sporting events, sometimes there's a Jumbotron showing the action. And it's cool to see, as if somebody's filming the race so the audience can see it better. It's cool to see that screen effect as you're racing through. The next course in the Mushroom Cup is Moo Moo Farm, and the only thing I want to bring up here is that this is the origin of everybody's favorite new character in Mario Kart World, Cow. What an origin story.
So you say. I didn't even see the cow.
Oh, there were a bunch of cows. It wasn't
Well,
just Cow.
I didn't see any.
Were you playing with your eyes closed?
Might as well.
The next pair of levels are perhaps my two favorites in the game. You got Koopa Troopa Beach.
Is that the one with the crabs?
There are crabs. Crab also going to be a playable character in Mario Kart World. Can't wait for that, I'm sure.
So excited.
Yeah. But my favorite part about Koopa Troopa Beach is the shortcut where you have to have a mushroom. There's a ramp that leads into a hole in the side of a cliff face wall, and if you boost off the ramp with a mushroom, you will go through this secret tunnel and come out from behind a waterfall on the other side of the course. And you know my theory about games with waterfalls, right?
A good game has a hidden waterfall.
Kind of.
Simplistic put.
If a video game has waterfalls in it, you can tell if it's a good game or not based on whether or not any of the waterfalls have a secret behind them. A good video game will have a secret behind at least one waterfall. There are very few games that I have found that are exceptions to this rule, and Mario Kart 64, not an exception. There is a cool secret behind this waterfall.
Well, what was the cool secret?
The fact that you can boost into this shortcut that spits you out from behind a waterfall.
Too bad I only boosted into the ocean.
Yeah, it can be tricky to hit the ramp at the right angle. And there's another long, thin ramp later in the level that's much harder to go on because it's just very easy to fall off. And that, if you have a mushroom, you can boost over a rock, which is not as exciting, but you get some sweet air, some big hang time. Finally, we have my favorite course in the whole game, Calamari Desert, where you got that train on the train tracks and you can drive down those tracks, follow that train. You can go through the whole train route, including the pitch black tunnel. It's not a shortcut. It doesn't really serve any purpose other than to give the level some three-dimensionality and sense of place in the world that it exists in. But that detail always hit me from an early age. I love the train in Calamari Desert, and I love that the game lets you drive on the train tracks.
But it still provides no escape from the game.
Yeah, no escape. Tell us what happened when you decided to drive on the train tracks. First of all, I think you only did it because I talked about how cool it was, and you thought it was actually something you were supposed to do, right? To take a shortcut or something. You didn't realize you'd just be stuck on the tracks, descending further and further back in your 8th place spot to the point where it was impossible for you to catch up.
Yeah, so I might as well take a little road trip, train ride.
Did that stand out to you at all as something cool, though, that you could ride on the train tracks? Or is it something where in 1997 that was impressive, but in 2025, who cares?
I'd still say it's pretty impressive. So you could use this new element of the track, but how would you realistically explore it without being part of a race and losing?
There is time trial mode, where it's just you trying to beat the race as fast as you can to get a good time, but you can take as long as you want, and it doesn't kick you out. It's not like you have to finish the race in a certain amount of time. There are no other drivers on the track. It's just you. There are no items. I think you start with 3 mushrooms, and that's all you get. But if you want to just explore a level, that's the way to do it. Calamari Desert also has excellent music, which, oh man, the Mario Kart 8 version of Calamari Desert with the Mario Kart 8 rendition of the song, one of my favorites in that game. And it's this nice western sunset. Talk about vibes. That is a heck of a 1-2 punch of Koopa Troopa Beach and Calamari Desert. Cruising right along into the Flower Cup, where we start off with Toad's Turnpike, a nighttime drive on a highway with lots of actual vehicles. Toad's Turnpike is just another example of having these courses that might only have one gameplay hook to them, one element that's unique, but that's enough. In this one, you just need the traffic that you were zipping in between, and that's enough to give it its own identity. Similar to Moo Moo Farm, you have Monty moles popping out of holes and you have a bunch of cows. Calamari Desert, you have the train. These levels have at least one thing going for them, for the most part, and some of those can be stretched a little thinner than others. Like perhaps the next one, Frappe Snowland, where you have Snowman, another playable character in Mario Kart World. I've never liked the ice/snow levels, so this one is one of my least favorites. But then you got Choco Mountain. Still looks like mud and dirt, but this one, if you remember, shortly after the section with the falling boulders, there's a part where you're driving and you turn left. You go up this hill that is part of the track, and it's parallel to the earlier part of the track you were just driving on before you turned, and there is no guardrail. And several times, both of us, while we're driving up this hill, drove a little too far to the left, fell off back to this earlier part in the track. We're facing the wrong way, so we have to hop to turn around, and at that point, it's over. There's no way to catch up. That's a frustrating mistake to make, especially when you do it repeatedly. Then we have Wario Stadium. Gives off monster truck rally vibes. Something that I hate in the real world. I would never go to a monster truck show. But it's these big, long dirt roads with lots of bumps and hills and ramps. And you're inside of this stadium. And it feels like an extreme sports course. And most excitingly of all, future games do recreations of classic tracks.
Oh, well, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Like in Mario Kart 8.
Exactly. One of the only tracks that has never been incorporated into a future title is Wario Stadium. Never. Until Mario Kart World. N64, Wario Stadium, getting what I can only imagine is going to be the most massive glow-up of any course in Mario Kart history. There was a fun fact on the Mario Wiki about this. Wario Stadium is the longest a course has ever gone from its original debut to being remade in a future Mario Kart game with a wait time of 29 years. We have not had Wario Stadium in our lives for 29 years. Some of you listening to this weren't even born the last time Wario Stadium was new. But now, thanks to the magic of Mario Kart World, we can go play Wario Stadium until the sun comes up, or the sun goes down, as it were.
Or both.
Next one, I want to hit Royal Raceway. Similar again to Mario and Luigi Raceway, but the cool thing about this one, there's a big ramp you go off of, and then off to your right is Peach's Castle. Both from Super Mario 64, but also, of course, where they have the award ceremony in the game. And you can drive over there. You can drive up to the front door of the castle. Extremely cool to me that I could drive around in that environment after getting so intimately familiar with it while playing Mario 64.
Just wait for the newest Mario Kart game.
We don't have to wait much longer. Did you think that was a neat detail? It's similar to the train tracks in that it's pointless to drive over there. There's no shortcut, there are no items, it's not going to help you win the race. To me, it is very neat that it is a part of the course that actually exists that you can drive around in and not just a background element that is purely for aesthetics.
Adds to the nice details for sure.
It does. Then we get to perhaps my least favorite cup, the Special Cup, which starts with DK's Jungle Parkway. Never liked that one, other than the paddle boat that goes by. You go off this ramp over a big river, and there's a paddle boat going through the river. Very nice. Other than that, though, not a fan of this level, but nothing compares to how much I dislike Yoshi Valley, where there are so many loops and twists and turns with no guardrails that it doesn't even show you what place you're in. It's marked with a question mark because different people on different parts of the track could loop back around to be in certain spots.
Oh, well, I know which place I was. I was, in fact, the only question mark on the screen at some point.
Because everyone else had finished, and there was only one person left. And you were still a question mark, even though players 1 through 7 had already finished, and there was only one spot left.
Yeah, I like to keep the mystery.
What did you think about this one, though, with all of the narrow roads that you fall off of constantly?
What I think of the whole game? It's not my friend.
Well, did you feel any better about Rainbow Road?
I think it was my favorite one. This one, the Rainbow Road, was my favorite level.
Yeah. It's very good. This is the first time you get the full version of the classic Rainbow Road song. And you have glowing neon faces of different characters in the sky in the background. It's great. It feels very cozy and unique to Mario Kart. And again, it's taking this concept from Super Mario Kart and really upgrading it, pushing it to the next level, and codifying it as this iconic element as opposed to what feels like a rough draft in Super Mario Kart. And then we wrapped it up with another round of battle mode. Well, 5 rounds of battle mode. Balloon battle, where you won 3, I won 2.
Yeah, I love that one as well.
I think you enjoyed battle mode more than any of the races, right?
That is exactly true.
Did you get a sense for how beloved Block Fort was? I mentioned Block Fort was a fan favorite battle course. It's the one where there are 4 different block structures and you can drive up the ramps and you can drive across bridges between them.
That for sure is also the reason why I liked it, because it made dodging and ghosting you easier. It actually reminded me of the games I used to play as a child, in the real world.
Really? Battle mode or Block Fort?
Battle mode.
You running around with balloons strapped to you, throwing rocks at other kids who have balloons?
No, we were just throwing balls.
Throw balls at children?
Yeah.
Well, you were a child too, right?
Of course.
Huh.
Never heard of the Ducks and Hunters?
And I've heard of Duck, Duck, Goose. What's Ducks and Hunters?
There are 3 rows of kids.
Mm-hmm.
On each side you have the hunters, and the line of children in the middle are the ducks, and they keep throwing a ball from one team to the other, and you need to dodge the ball. Otherwise, if you get hit by the ball, you're out.
You're out. Okay. What happens if you catch the ball? Is that a mechanic? Because in dodgeball, you can catch the ball, and then the other person is out.
You don't let the ball touch you at all.
Okay. Final thoughts about Mario Kart 64? Especially relative to Super Mario Kart. I mean, you clearly said it's an improvement, but it still seems like you didn't have a lot of fun with this one.
I had more fun than the previous one, but I thought the overall game is mean when it got to the ending of the celebratory podium.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember what happened?
This is only if you get 4th place overall.
Which you got.
Which I got. I didn't remember seeing this ever before. You can't get 5th through 8th, otherwise you fail out and you don't even get to see the awards ceremony. And if you get 1st through 3rd, you're on the podium getting a prize. I was DK, which made this even funnier. You see the 3 characters at the podium, and then in the background of the front yard of Peach's castle, there's poor Donkey sitting in a go-kart by himself, and then the camera pans up to him as he's just watching these other 3 characters get awarded for their efforts and their victory. And then the sound turns sad and discordant, and he drives off by himself. And as he's driving off, a bomb cart pulls up next to him and blows up, and he explodes. That's what you get for 4th place. You get to be alone, isolated, watching everyone but yourself get celebrated and get a trophy, and then you do your depressing drive home, and then a bomb comes right up next to you and blows you up just for good measure. It was one of the funniest things I've seen in a Nintendo game. Again, especially because it was Donkey Kong. He looks so dopey. Absolutely hysterical. Maybe the highlight of our session playing together. So funny it was. Yeah. But this is not a game you would ever want to replay, it sounds like.
Maybe. Maybe not.
Maybe for 10 minutes in 5 years if you've had a few drinks first.
It's a deal.
And then we can move right back to Mario Kart World. All right, based on your feelings of Super Mario Kart, I had a suspicion how you might feel about this next one, 2001 Game Boy Advance title, Mario Kart: Super Circuit. This one we were not able to play together. We each did this one solo. We played through every track by ourselves. Why don't you tell me what your experience was playing Mario Kart: Super Circuit for the Game Boy Advance?
So I'd start with what I like about the game, but I cannot really remember anything that I liked about it. In fact, I'd say if you're a parent when this game came out, you wouldn't punish your child, you'd just send them to their room to play Mario Kart Super Circuit. That would be my overall impression. As far as our game went, I didn't like that it was such an isolating experience.
It's much less fun when you're playing by yourself, right?
It was no fun playing by myself.
Was it still more fun than Super Mario Kart?
Yes, because I could see better, but still I wouldn't call it much fun because I felt like this was the hardest to play, even if the visuals were better. The controllers, they were so hard to navigate with. Again, you could do a 90-degree turn just to take the corner and then you fell.
It should be said, I urged you to use the D-pad to steer, and you were adamant about using the joystick. And using a joystick on a game that was originally designed with a D-pad is not going to be a very good time.
Well, I had zero muscle memory built in that other option, so...
Well, you didn't have any muscle memory for this game with the joystick either, and you used the D-pad for Super Mario Kart.
I wasn't using the controllers.
Yeah, I did just give you the Joy-Con for this one with the puppy dog grip, as opposed to the SNES controller, where you can't even be tempted by a joystick, for there is none. So you didn't find it fun to control, but you found it easier to look at, but you didn't enjoy really any part of it at all.
That's correct. It felt like a step back from the Mario Kart 64.
Yeah, I mean, and it was, because the Game Boy Advance was the handheld system at the time, and it was much less powerful than the home console Nintendo 64.
Right, but not as powerful as my hate, because I completely hated this level called Rainbow Road, which it was the last one I was forced to play it with at least 100cc.
Yeah, because you can do 50cc for every cup except the final cup, which you can only do on 100cc or 150.
Yeah, for some reason. And I also don't see how someone who was remotely decent to play this game in the past could keep playing this game today and have any wins. So illogical and difficult it was.
And thankfully, there's a little feature called the Rewind on the Nintendo Switch Online app, which you made very liberal use of when playing through this game solo, right?
Well, I had no other chance.
Right, because again, if you get 5th place or lower, then you don't get to continue on.
Exactly.
That was the thing. You really locked in with your focus when you realized how much you hated the game, and if you played better, you would be done with it faster. That was such a big motivating factor. You're like, okay, if I really lock in and focus, I can beat each course faster, and then I can be done with Mario Kart Super Circuit and never have to touch it again in my life.
That was exactly my motivation with this one. Let's just say I'm just glad that kids nowadays don't have to go through this trauma just to enjoy a racing game.
Interesting. I had a bit more appreciation for it than you did. Of course, this is just a direct continuation from Super Mario Kart. It feels like a separate lineage, right? There's Super Mario Kart and Mario Kart Super Circuit are the two-dimensional Mario Kart games, and the rest of the series is in 3D. And so just by that very nature, these two games feel much different. I think it controls better than Super Mario Kart. Not by much, but you can tell there's some refinement to the controls, and especially the start boost. You know, that timing goes a long way with me. But there's not much to say on the gameplay front or the character front because it's the exact same roster as Mario Kart 64. The big improvement over Super is the courses. Almost every course has a big, beautiful sprite in the background that is one of the defining features of the visual identity of the course. So, for Peach Circuit, the very first course in the game, you have a large sprite of a castle in the background. Presumably Peach's castle, even though it looks nothing like Peach's castle from Mario 64. It's just a big light pink/orange castle without many distinguishing features besides spires and a few flags. But it's very big and prominent in the background, and you can see it from most angles while you're racing around. Then you have Shy Guy Beach. In the background of that, there's a big sprite of a pirate ship on the ocean with Shy Guys wearing pirate hats, and they're throwing bombs at you on the track from their pirate ship. Very nice. Fun little interactive element. Feels way more Mario than anything in Super, and adds some gameplay variety, right? This one being bombs thrown on the track that you have to dodge.
Exactly what I was looking for in a game.
Except it sounds like, once again, you weren't looking at all, because I'm saying these. You're giving me this look that says, what? These were in the background of the levels? Are you sure I played these ones?
Luckily, I dodged them.
Yeah, and you were so focused on just trying to get the course down and not crash. Next one I want to mention is Cheese Land, also remade in Mario Kart 8. I've always hated Cheese Land.
You see, I like cheese, so this I remember.
I like cheese too. I don't like driving on cheese, and I don't like ugly cheese spires with mice running around everywhere. But to be complimentary, I did think it was very readable, because I'm playing as Wario, who wears yellow. The course is yellow, and there are various other darker shades of yellow throughout this whole thing, showing the cheeses and whatnot. But the specific hues of yellow that they used, I didn't feel like Wario was getting lost in any of the course elements. So I was impressed with the level of readability, despite all of the uses of this variation of yellow throughout Cheese Land. Luigi's Circuit is very cool because it's raining, and that effect looks real nice on the Game Boy Advance. I mean, I'm a big fan of sprite art in general. I love the way Game Boy Advance games look. It's a little different for Mario Kart Super Circuit because, again, you're racing into the foreground, and it can make it hard to see what's coming up, similar to Super Mario Kart.
Yeah, that was actually my favorite part of the game.
The raining course, yeah. Very cool. And then there's a big blimp with Luigi on it in the background, which I only bring up because the next course is called Sky Garden, which takes place in the clouds. But in the background of this level, you can see the same Luigi blimp. So it's like it was raining in the first level, and then Luigi took his blimp and sailed high into the clouds above the rain, and you're seeing that same blimp as you're racing through the sky. Then you get to Cheep Cheep Island, which to me was notable because in the background there are giant Cheep Cheeps jumping out of the water, much like the giant Cheep Cheep that flies above your head and spits the trophy out at the awards ceremony.
Did we play the same game?
Mm-hmm. These Cheep Cheeps are huge, though. Is there something in the water of Cheep Cheep Island that makes these particular Cheep Cheeps so flippin' huge? Question must be asked. Get a crackpot research team on it, ASAP. If anybody has any interesting theories about the lore of Cheep Cheep Island, chat at switch2ludiclore.com. Tell us. I want to know your theories.
My theory is that those chip chips just came from the cheese race.
You think they came from Cheese Land?
Yeah, they got stuffed and big. They're full of cheese, what do you know?
Yeah. They've been gorging themselves on all the cheeses. That makes sense. Especially if they can fly. There's not any water in Cheese Land, but they can just fly on over, get fat and puffy.
Is that the cheesy theory?
That is a very cheesy theory. What's not so cheesy is Sunset Wilds, the final course in the Lightning Cup. And this, from what I can tell, is the first instance of a Mario Kart track that changes per lap. Now, of course, in Mario Kart 8, sometimes the entire course layout will change on each lap, especially with some of the Booster Course DLC. But in this one, Western theme, similar to Calamari Desert, it's sunset. And then when you get to the second lap, the sun goes down even further, so the color of the sky changes. And when you get to the third lap, the sun is all the way down and it's nighttime. Purely visual, purely aesthetic. The rest of the level is pretty generic, especially when comparing it to something like Calamari Desert. But the fact that the sky changes with each lap is really cool and a precursor to some of the ways they will change laps in future Mario Karts.
Well, a nice thing you see when you stop to notice the details.
Yes. So many nice details that I guess just went right over your head. Just a few more I want to hit on. Ribbon Road. You're driving on a ribbon and there are presents in the background, and I didn't realize that it's only gift themed, if you will, because the remake of this level in Mario Kart 8 is fantastic, and you're a tiny racer in a child's bedroom. And so it's not just presents in the background. It's a whole kid's bedroom with lots of different toys, and you're a small person in a big world. Love that. But it was cool to see the original Ribbon Road again.
The Rainbow Road, is that the one I hated?
Ribbon Road.
Ribbon Road. Is that the one I hated the most?
No, you hated Rainbow Road.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like, what's the present, Spite?
The present is another hole for you to fall into. Then we get to what I think was your favorite level, Yoshi Desert, because it's Egyptian themed with pyramids in the background, and then Yoshi as the Great Sphinx. That's the big, beautiful sprite in the background of this level. This was your favorite level, right?
Other than me racing like a mommy, yeah.
Racing like a mummy?
With the lowest speed and just kept falling. I mean, I don't even know if there's an option to fall. Whatever way to lose this game, I was doing it. Oh yeah, the sand. They're moving. I got absorbed by those moving sands.
Special Cup, we have Bowser Castle 4, which I'm mentioning only because it's the 4th Bowser Castle level in this game. And each one does have a different background, but I do like future games and even Mario Kart 64 where there's only one Bowser Castle level. Bowser doesn't have 4 different castles. Of course, you could say maybe these are just 4 different areas of the same castle, but there's basically a Bowser Castle level in just about every cup except for one, and it's a bit tedious.
Was Bowser Castle the level where I had to rewind 50 times?
Yes.
Okay.
Because there was that grating in the floor. There's this part where you're driving over the steel grating over lava, and there are holes in the grating that are lava pits, and you kept driving into the lava pits.
And you kept laughing and laughing.
I mean, this was seriously like over 30 times of you rewinding, and this was on the first lap, so it's like you've had to rewind this many times, and then once you get past it, you're going to have to do it 2 more times.
Well, I did it.
I don't think this one was specifically Bowser Castle 4. It was an earlier Bowser Castle one, but again, though, thank goodness for the rewind feature, because imagine just having to replay that whole course over and over again because you're getting 7th or 8th place.
I didn't have to imagine it because I had to do it anyway.
And then, you know it, you definitely don't love it, Rainbow Road.
Highway to Hell Road.
I think the layout of Rainbow Road is cool here. It has shooting stars that are falling onto the tracks that you have to avoid. And it has the Paper Mario design of Bowser's Castle that is floating in the sky in the background. Looks very cool. And the other stars, the stars that are not falling, just the ones that are twinkling in the sky, look nice. Although I did find it a bit odd that Bowser's Castle is so close to Rainbow Road. Makes it feel less cozy, as if Bowser could be watching you from his fortress and sending out something to attack at any moment. But the big downfall of Rainbow Road on the Game Boy Advance version of Mario Kart, the song. The song is terrible. And I'm not going to play it here for copyright reasons, but seriously, go to YouTube, look up Mario Kart Super Circuit Rainbow Road OST, and just give it a listen. It starts off kind of promising. You think it's going to go into the same classic Rainbow Road melody that we all know and love. It is terrible. It ruins the whole course for me. A course I otherwise liked, unlike you. But I think for you, the music had absolutely nothing to do with why you hated it.
Yeah, all I could hear was my inner voice just repeating over and over again how much I hate this game.
Yeah.
I do remember a spooky castle that had some nice music.
Yeah, it was another Boo level, haunted themed. I think there are a couple of them, but one of them is called Boo Lake, and there's no water. I like the idea that the lake is dead and gone because it's a ghost house. I don't know if that was the intent, but you're driving around this circular boardwalk. You could imagine the boardwalk being the perimeter of a lake, but there is no lake.
Or maybe there is, one formed by the hopeless tears falling from your eyes as you're playing this wonderful game.
Maybe that's it. So that's Super Mario Kart. I played all of these levels as well. I had a much better time than my wife did. I didn't have to rewind very much. Some of my muscle memory kicked back in. It's a huge upgrade over Super, again, in large part due to the course theming, which is just way more memorable and entertaining. And another interesting thing about this game, you can unlock every track from the original Super Mario Kart, but what you have to do is You have to get gold on each cup, and then after you get gold, you have to pick up 100 coins on each cup just through the various tracks in the cup. So it's a lot of effort to go through just to unlock these courses that are already bad from Super Mario Kart, and apparently they're even worse in Super Circuit because a lot of the obstacles and a lot of the elements on the course in the original Super Mario Kart are missing in Mario Kart Super Circuit. Maybe that would make them easier, but those tracks were already pretty boring, and if you remove every obstacle in the way, I can imagine it's just duller than dull. So we didn't unlock those or play those, but the new tracks for Mario Kart Super Circuit, overall I liked them a lot. That said, I also was ready to move on from the 2D era of Mario Kart, especially because of the next game we played. The fourth of 8 mainline Mario Kart games, my dear darling Double Dash. Mario Kart : Double Dash ! To be precise. This was my favorite Mario Kart game as a kid, as a teenager. It was my favorite one up until Mario Kart 8. But I hadn't played it in many years, so it was interesting to revisit it with the Nintendo Newcomer over here.
I can totally get that.
Get why it was my favorite?
Yes. I mean, it's not that hard to love it after playing the previous 3 games, you know?
It's very similar in the lineage of Mario Kart 64, but of course, there are some key differences, including the biggest difference of all, the fact that each kart now has 2 characters in the kart. And when you're playing single player, none of that stuff really matters. It functions as if there's only one character in the kart because you can do every action basically the same way you can in all of the other Mario Kart games. However, when you're playing co-op and one person is controlling the character in front and another person is controlling the character in back, some madness can ensue. What did you think of this dual driver mechanic in Mario Kart : Double Dash !
I think it's an effort that gets dispersed, and you know, when you don't play games very often, it's way easier to just be in the back. You can focus at more precise aiming of the items, and also punch left and right, as I found out. We did try to switch driving, and you saw how that went. I haven't seen Wario dragged on the street for such a long mileage. Never knew that would be possible, but yeah, that's the kind of driver I was.
You were Baby Mario, and you kept crashing into everything, and my fat-bootied, purple-bottomed Wario, every time you hit something, would flail off the back, and he'd be holding onto the back of the cart as his legs and his little booty are dangling behind as he gets dragged across the pavement. And this happened again and again and again and again, and then we decided, well, how about I drive and you handle the items, which is the setup I prefer anyway. I was a little concerned that you might find it boring being in the back seat, because here's what the backseat character can do. They can throw items, they can punch left or right, they can wiggle the control stick while the driver is boosting in order for the boost to activate. They actually have to jiggle the control stick, otherwise the character in front cannot get the boost from the drift on their own. And of course, you can press the item button when you have no item to do a honking sound/animation that is different per character. Wario's being him slapping his big fat purple bottom.
Or you can just sit in the back, relax, and enjoy the view.
A sightseeing tour, which happened a couple times when we were so far ahead of the pack.
Because you're driving.
Yeah, and we were playing on 50cc. I mean, when I had these games growing up, I would play every cup on every CC until I got gold on every cup, and then I would consider it finished. I have gotten gold on 150cc in this game in a previous era, but who has time for that now? I might do it again whenever it drops on the Nintendo GameCube Switch Online app, coming in 6 days alongside the Switch 2. But for the purposes here, we just wanted to see every course and put the game through its paces.
It was indeed true that At the beginning, when I started driving, I did find it slightly boring.
Yes. When you were driving, did you still find the driving controls easier to navigate compared to the previous 3 that we have played?
Yes.
Okay. I agree. It is easier to stay on the track. It seems like the roads are a little wider, although the roads are pretty wide in Mario Kart 64. But it felt like a nice amount of space you had to work with. The turning, of course, varies by kart and by character. But it felt a lot smoother, though it is still relatively easy to veer off course if you're not careful.
We were having fun, don't blame us.
I was having fun. I don't know. Like you said, you were bored at first.
At first, yeah.
And what was it that changed your opinion from this is boring to, oh, wait, this is actually pretty fun?
We switched seats.
So once I took the driver's seat and you took the item seat, that's when you started really enjoying it?
Yes, all the fun started when we switched seats and I was seeing what items they are having. I very much liked that. I think it was a green spiky shell that was Bowser's.
Uh-huh.
Which makes me realize that the items were depending on what characters you were choosing, right? Or no?
Each pair of characters has their own special item. Some are more exciting than others. So I'll just run them down right now. Mario and Luigi have fireballs, which of course, fireballs were added to future Mario Kart games, but in here, you can only get them as those 2 characters. With Luigi's being green, love his green fireballs. They act exactly like how you would imagine. One we didn't see, Peach and Daisy, their special item is a heart. And the hearts will surround their cart, and if they get hit by an item while the hearts are surrounding their cart, not only does the item not hurt them, they then get the item to use themselves.
Good thing this game is in the category of never again, because I like to say that.
It is pretty situational. You have to hope you get hit by another item while you're using this, and also hope the item you get hit by is not a fake question mark block or a banana or a green shell. You want to get struck by lightning when you have that thing activated, or get a blue shell up in there. Yoshi and Birdo, they have a huge egg. Yoshi's with green spots, Birdo's with pink. Kind of works like the shells, except they're much bigger, so they're easier to hit the target. And then when they hit something, they break open and 3 items drop onto the road.
That doesn't sound too bad at all.
No. Not at all. Baby Mario and Baby Luigi. Their item became a staple in the Mario Kart item roster in future games, and that would be the Chain Chomp.
The what?
Looks like a big black cannonball with spiky teeth and eyes attached to a chain, and it will just charge ahead with the chain attached to the front of your cart, and it will chomp everything in its path while also boosting you forward because it's pulling you so fast it can usually drag you up a few spots in the ranking.
Yeah, that thing was on the side of the road.
Oh yeah, it was also an obstacle in Luigi Circuit. There is a chain chomp that you have to avoid. Toad and Toadette get a golden mushroom, which is very lame because that item has already existed. And that's basically the infinite mushroom where you can just blast and blast and blast and blast and keep getting a speed boost for however many seconds it's active. And then Koopa and Paratroopa, more lame ones. Koopa gets triple green shells, which has already been in previous Mario Kart games. And Paratroopa gets triple red shells, which is way better than triple green shells. So it makes Koopa look like a chump because why would you ever want his when you can get Paratroopas? But it's also lame because triple red shells already existed, so it doesn't feel like a unique new item. Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong, they have a giant banana, you see? Much harder to dodge.
I was wondering where those huge bananas on the road were from.
Uh-huh, it's from your boys Donkey and Diddy.
Still doesn't top my favorite item.
Which is next, Bowser's Shell. Bowser and Bowser Jr., it's a giant green Bowser shell. It works like any other shell, except it's much bigger and faster, and it looks much cooler. It looks very intimidating. So just seeing that flying around on the road, yeah, looks cool. But again, functionally, not that exciting. It's basically like a shell or the Yoshi/Birdo egg Finally, we have Wario in Waluigi's item, which is the Bob-omb. One of my least favorite items in Mario Kart because it's very hard to aim it properly. It's very easy to throw it ahead of yourself and then drive into the blast radius as it explodes. But this is the game where it originated. And then there are some unlockable characters. Petey Piranha and King Boo, which we didn't see, but their special item is all of the items. Their ability is that they can obtain any special item except for the green fireballs and the pink spotted Birdo egg. Did any of these new items stand out to you other than the Bowser shell?
For sure, that one with the banana and the one with the hearts.
The hearts one is fun, and that is unique. There's the Boo item, which is actually not in this game, but in previous and future games, the Boo item will steal a random item from another character. But I do like how the hearts for Peach and Daisy will absorb the item. Been on an X-Men kick lately. It's like Rogue touching someone with her bare hands and absorbing their power. Except for this is the power of hearts. You know, princesses, hearts, girls, pink, am I right? Again, a bit of a shame that the ladies are stuck in these very gender-conforming norms and roles. We have quite the expanded character roster here. Did you have any fun picking any of the newcomers? As a fellow newcomer yourself? Do you want me to read off who was new in this game?
Yes, please.
There was Princess Daisy. There was Birdo. Baby Mario and Baby Luigi. Paratroopa. Diddy Kong. Bowser Jr. and Waluigi. And then there are some unlockable characters, Toad, Toadette, Petey Piranha, and King Boo that we did not get to. You did talk about how cute Baby Mario and Baby Luigi were.
They're so cute, I don't have much to add, you know?
That's the sort of commentary people come here to get.
I mean, I don't know anything about their origins. Do you know anything about their origins?
Yeah, Baby Mario and Baby Luigi originated in the Super Nintendo classic Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, but why are they small?
Because in that game, they are literally babies, which we will get to in the Donkey Kong Timeline episode. The early lives of Mario and Luigi are deeply entrenched and intertwined with the fate of the Kong family. Even though it's going to be a Donkey Kong Timeline episode, there is going to be plenty of historical information about the origins and early life of Mario and Luigi. So I'll invite you to join me on that podcast where you can learn all about Baby Mario and Baby Luigi. One thing I will say about Baby Mario and Baby Luigi, I understand why they did this. However, I do not like that now, in the modern Mario Kart games, we have an overabundance of babies because we have Baby Mario, we have Baby Luigi, we have Baby Peach, we have Baby Daisy, and we have Baby Rosalina. That is too many babies.
What's that one, like a baby factory? A nursery?
Yeah, it is. It's like a nursery. I get it because, well, there are 2 boy babies, and it'd be nice to get some more female characters, which I agree with. And to be fair, Baby Peach debuted in an RPG called Mario and Luigi Partners in Time from the year 2005, but Baby Daisy and Baby Rosalina were both created for Mario Kart, with Baby Daisy first appearing in Mario Kart Wii and Baby Rosalina appearing in Mario Kart 8. So they're inventing characters, and I'm all for more lady characters, but the babies are lame. Let's be real. You find the babies lame?
Their design is cute, at least Luigi and Mario.
It is cute, and, you know, the other babies are also cute, but I want better non-baby lady characters. Can we get some more of those, please?
Like that ape you used to like?
Can we get Candy Kong?
Baby Candy Kong?
Oh, no. Oh, my gosh. No, 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 no. Can we get fully grown adult Candy Kong in Mario Kart World, please? No, I don't want her. I'm over her. Why you gotta drag Candace's name back into our relationship?
It's the Kavorka, my dear.
Candy has the Kavorka over me.
Yeah, it's the lure of the animal.
Wow. Well, no better time than the present to move right along. Moving on! Another new element to Mario Kart : double exclamation point is the introduction of choosable carts. Carts that are more than just the classic pipe frame basic go-kart design. You have Mario's off-roader. It's not called the off-roader, but it looks like an off-roading vehicle. You have Peach's coach, a stagecoach looking vehicle. You have a Yoshi cart that is shaped like a Yoshi with a Yoshi head in the front. The babies are cruising around in a stroller cart. And you have various other carts themed similarly with a handful of unlockable carts as well.
I think that's a great feature, but wasn't it already present in the previous one?
No.
They were showing something with the stars. I guess that was the weight of the characters?
Yeah, that was the weight class of the character.
Does the weight of the characters and the cart interact?
They do. And I think the designs are very cool. Some of them. I like seeing the different cart designs, and I'm super pumped to see all the variations of the carts you can get in Mario Kart World. But I only choose these based on aesthetics. I don't pay attention to the stats. I would never be seen in a Donkey Kong jumbo barrel cart.
I think I've seen you playing in that one.
Well,
What you talking about?
that was Donkey in that cart. That wasn't me. That was Donkey, okay? Big difference. If you think you're married to Donkey, then you have much bigger problems.
Yeah, like Candy Kong.
No! Oh, why, Candace? Why? Oof. Before we get into the courses, I do want to touch on the award ceremony, because you're in something called the parade cart, which is this big golden cart driven by Toadsworth, the elder statesman of the toad species. The parade cart has two podiums on it, essentially, that are also golden attached to the cart and part of the design. And so for the award ceremony, instead of it being the traditional, here are the top 3 racers, it's just Toadsworth driving you around some sort of facsimile of Delfino Plaza from Super Mario Sunshine. And your 2 characters are on the 2 podiums on the cart with a wreath around their neck, celebrating, and then you have a bunch of Piantas and Noki cheering you on. The Piantas doing that dance you liked.
They're just bouncing.
Bouncing in a
bouncy way.
And it's very different. It feels very tropical because you're on a beach and you're next to these beachy-esque creatures. I mean, they're actually plant creatures with trees growing out of their heads, but they live near and on the beach. I like this award ceremony, but I do not like it as much as the traditional 3 characters on a podium, giant cheap fish over your head spitting a trophy in your face. I do still prefer that.
To each to their own.
Yes. Part of the reason I bring that up is because the very final thing you can unlock in this game is the parade cart. The big golden cart that Toadsworth drives you around on when you win. You can unlock something called mirror mode, which is just every course but reversed as if you were racing in a mirror. And I believe it is still set at 150cc, so it's pretty tricky, but if you get the gold trophy in all of the Mirror Cup Grand Prix, that's how you unlock the parade cart. What was your other question?
If you got this cart.
In my original file, I did get the cart, yes. And it was kind of disappointing because, first of all, things you unlock at the very, very end of the game after you've basically literally done everything, well, at that point, I'm not going to play the game much more, am I? Of course, it's a bit different with Mario Kart since it's a competitive game, but I didn't have a lot of people to play with back then. I would play with friends occasionally, but 95% of my Mario Karting was solo. And the parade cart is kind of gaudy. It's a little tacky to drive that thing around. You know, Mario is a man of the people. He's a common man, a blue-collar man. He doesn't have solid gold cars that he drives around. Are you kidding me? Now, this is interesting. We were playing in the same cart cooperatively, so we didn't have split screen, but there are some differences if you do split screen mode. So, for example, Luigi Circuit, the flowers on the grass are missing. On Peach Beach, Daisy Cruiser, which is another stage, is in the background of Peach Beach. A cruise liner out in the ocean in the background. Very nice detail. But when you're in split screen, Daisy Cruiser is gone. Is it the Mushroom Kingdom equivalent of the Bermuda Triangle? The Delfino Triangle? Ooh, spooky. Or is it just limited hardware resources that the developers had to work within the limits of in order to prioritize a nice frame rate and stable performance? Woo!
Or maybe they just put all the effort into the cart you get to play with at the end.
The parade cart.
Yeah.
That's where 90% of the development time of this game went. Now we're going to get to the stars of any Mario Kart game, as we are discovering. The courses themselves.
I like the way the world was built because it looks less flat. The whole environment feels like having more depth.
Yeah, and that applies to every course, every facet of the game. Because while Mario Kart 64 was indeed a 3D game, the characters and the items were still two-dimensional sprites, whereas in this game, Mario Kart : !! Everything is a 3D model, so it has a lot more depth, and the courses in general have more going on in the background. They're more involved, better sense of place, extremely colorful. That said, I'm not really crazy about the selection here.
Selection of what?
The selection of levels, and we have a very slim 16 courses. That's all you get. You get 16 tracks. As my mom says, you get what you get, and you don't throw a fit. You're only going to have 16 tracks for this entire generation of Mario Kart, and by golly, you're going to like it. But of these 16, here are the ones I really like. I like Peach Beach, because it's very adjacent to Super Mario Sunshine, one of my favorite video games, and especially one of my favorite locations in any video game ever. Isle Delfino in Super Mario Sunshine, if I could go faff off to any video game world for the rest of my life, it would almost certainly be Isle Delfino. So I like Peach Beach. I love Baby Park. Very infamous course, very divisive course. You just do a bunch of laps in a circle. I believe it's 7 laps in Double Dash. It plays this goofy, carnival-esque music. Lots of people hate this level. I think it's great. It's very different. And it's just fun drifting around these curves over and over again, lap after lap. Daisy Cruiser, I like. You're on a ship that's in the ocean. There's a part where you go through a dining room and all the tables are sliding from one side to the other as if to simulate choppy waves.
Choppy waves?
Yeah, because it's in the ocean, so maybe there's a bit of water-based turbulence, and that's why the tables are sliding all around. And then you can go down a hatch and get into the hole, whatever they call the bottom of a ship. And then you drive through an exhaust fan, and it, boo, launches you out of the hole, back to the course. Very fun. And I like Rainbow Road. I'm sorry to say that's about it. 4 of the 16 are courses that I really like.
I liked how you were singing me a song about your uncle on the Rainbow Road.
That is an old YouTube video, got to be over 15 years old at this point. One of the first pieces of video game meme content I ever saw on YouTube. I'll debate whether or not to put that in the next episode. Now, just because those are the only 4 courses I like, I don't dislike many courses. I do dislike Dino Dino Jungle, Sherbert Land. I always hate the ice courses in Mario Karts. And I'm sorry to say, Dry Dry Desert. I also usually do not like the desert Egyptian-themed courses. But, you know, Luigi Circuit is fine. Mario Circuit is fine. Waluigi Stadium and Wario Coliseum, they're fine. Bowser's Castle, it's fine. And I would certainly take even my least favorite levels here over every level in the Super Nintendo version, with the exception of Rainbow Road. I would take Rainbow Road from Super Mario Kart over maybe half of these levels.
I think my favorite was Decay Mountain.
And why was that?
It felt like skiing.
Oh yeah, you did mention that. You're on a mountain, there's a lot of bumps, and you're going pretty fast, lots of crazy curves careening through this mountain path. But you got a chuckle when we launched out of the cannon and we're flying through the air towards the volcano. Who should be in the back seat at this point but Donkey Kong? Why don't you tell the fine folk what you saw flapping in the breeze there?
I already erased it from my memory.
But it made you laugh so hard.
Just like, it was a monkey bottom.
It was Donkey's big, hairy ape butt flailing in the breeze. It looked ridiculous. Donkey Kong is so stupid in this game. It's so funny because also when Donkey Kong wins, he pounds his chest in victory. And if you just leave it on the results screen as he's pounding his chest, you will just get this annoying constant thump sound. It sounds like someone's knocking at your door, but it will just keep going and going and going. He's just pounding his chest very fast, very loud, for as long as you want to keep watching him pound his chest. Pounds his chest, flaps his hairy bottom at you in the middle of the air. What can't Donkey do?
Wear a costume to go with that tie. I know.
Oh yeah, he is a nudist, apart from the red tie. Any thoughts on that?
I'm not in the right country to speak about that.
To speak about nude Donkey Kong? I gotta know what country that's accepted in because we gotta move there ASAP. Bear Donkey Bottom, sign me up. Oof. I should say courses like Yoshi Circuit, which is an island shaped like Yoshi. That's a fine one, and it has been remade, and I do enjoy it much more in Mario Kart 8 than I do in Double Dash, double exclamation point. So some of these courses do get their glow up, and even now, as they are, they're not bad. They're well designed. There is variety within the scant 16 courses on offer. It's not like they just phoned it in. It's just a lot of these. They don't really speak to me.
I thought they were all pretty great compared to the previous of what we played.
What did you think of Rainbow Road? You hated Rainbow Road in Mario Kart Super Circuit. What did you think about this version of Rainbow Road?
This version I liked because you're singing about your uncle.
I was singing the meme song. That's why you liked it?
And of course, since you're the one driving, I didn't have to struggle. But from the Special Cup, I think I actually prefer Wario Coliseum.
Yeah, that one is pretty cool. I like it more than Waluigi Stadium. I just have this weird hang-up about Wario Stadium from Mario Kart 64, which is so basic compared to Wario Coliseum or Waluigi Stadium. But for some reason, from the moment I played Wario Coliseum as a teenager, when I first got Double Dash, double exclamation point, all I could think of was, man, I miss Wario Stadium. Even though Wario Coliseum has all these cool jumps through fireball hoops and metal grating, and there's a lot more verticality, it's much more dynamic. I guess I'm just stuck in the past. I have my boomer Mario Kart preferences, and by golly, they ain't gonna change. Rainbow Road, it's definitely a good version of Rainbow Road. The song is excellent. The song is just a remix of the fully formed version that first debuted in Mario Kart 64. There are some particularly tricky parts where there are boost pads on narrow strips of rainbow with no railing. Very easy to fall off. And there are a few stretches of Rainbow Road that are a bit dry as Rainbow Road can be. I mean, you're still on a multicolored rainbow in the middle of space hearing amazing music.
And you singing about your uncle.
And me singing the meme song. So I don't want to denigrate the fine name of Rainbow Road by any stretch. However, I do prefer Mario Kart 64's version of Rainbow Road. Double Dash's Rainbow Road is an uncomfortable second, with Super Mario Kart's Rainbow Road in third, and bringing up the rear, Mario Kart Super Circuits, based on the travesty that is the song in the Game Boy Advance version of Rainbow Road. Any final takeaways or thoughts on the courses? The real meat and potatoes of the game. Did you like the meat? Did you like the potatoes? Did you get full?
Yes.
I guess you're in a food coma now. That's why you sound like this? That's why you sound like you're about to pass out?
I think just playing the 16 races kind of tire me out a little, you know? We're cramming over here.
We are. And just wait until we get to the 96 courses in Mario Kart 8.
That doesn't bother me at all.
So much you love Mario Kart 8.
Yes.
Of course, we'll see how your opinion on that changes. Maybe you like it more after playing all the other ones. Maybe you'll like it a little less. But we'll find out in part 2 of this episode.
We'll play and see.
We have one last thing to cover in Mario Kart : !! And that is battle mode. Of course, you got your classic balloon battle, but joining the fray, 2 new additions to battle mode. You have Shine Thief, where a shine sprite appears in the middle of the stage. And you have to drive into it and hold on to it for 60 seconds. But of course, the other players can hit you with items to make you drop the shine sprite, and then they can pick it up themselves.
And win.
We had a pretty good round of that back and forth, and you just barely eked it out. I mean, barely. No matter how close to the end of the countdown you get, even if you have, for example, 5 seconds left and you drop the shine, your timer gets reset to 16 seconds. And it's the same for both players. I'm not sure exactly how they calculate it, but we had so many times where one of us was in that final 16-second countdown just for the other one to blow the other person up with an item of some sort and then steal the shine like a thief. We were a couple of real shine thieves. But you came out on top, and all I was left with was a dirty jail cell.
So I was a super thief.
You were the super thief, and I got caught up in the Pianta justice system on Isle Delfino, where you might say there is no justice at all. This is a reference to a cutscene at the beginning of Super Mario Sunshine, which you have no context for, which is why you are looking very confused. Mario gets arrested and goes to jail at the start of Super Mario Sunshine. It's a real kangaroo court.
Did he
was framed!
Did he skip paying his taxes?
That would be Yoshi.
Really? Why?
That's just a meme that developed, that Yoshi doesn't pay his taxes. It's become a popular meme on the internet over the past few years. However, there is this amazing website called Supper Mario Broth. Heck, I'm going to link it in the show notes because this is one of the all-time great Nintendo websites. It is one man who finds the most obscure Mario minutia, the most minor of details, and he'll just have several posts a day with a new factoid about something related to the Mario universe. You know what? I'm just going to read this verbatim. This is a tweet from 2019 from the Supper Mario Broth account. Quote, "There exists one piece of in-game evidence in favor of the widespread internet joke that Yoshi does not pay his taxes. In Fortune Street," which I believe was for the Nintendo Wii, "Yoshi is the only one out of the 26 characters that requests to be exempt from paying taxes when the player builds a new tax office." And then it has a screenshot of Yoshi where he says, "Yoshi! Yoshi?" And then in parentheses, it's translated. Because, you know, all Yoshi can say is, "Yoshi!" But if you speak fluent Yoshi, you're able to tell that in this instance, he was saying, "Could I please be exempt from paying taxes?" And he looks very downtrodden.
He's trying to avoid the double taxation.
No taxation without representation, and I'm pretty sure there are no Yoshi on the council of Princess Peach's court. Yoshis, rise up! Yoshis, take to the street, fight for your freedom. Because we all know when you have taxation with representation, what could go wrong? That's the foundational building block for a country you definitely would want to live in 200 years after it was founded, based on the principle of no taxation without representation. Yoshis, rise up. Gosh, where even were we? How did we get started talking about Yoshi evading taxes? I genuinely do not remember. Oh yeah, the battle mode. So there was Shine Thief, and then Bob-omb Blast is the other mode. And in that mode, each character has 3 stars, and every item block gives you a Bob-omb. And All you have to do is bomb your opponent, and every time you successfully blast your opponent with a bomb that you throw, you get 1 star, and once you get 3 stars, you win. What did you think of Bob-omb Blast? Correct me if I'm wrong. Seemed like maybe that was your least favorite of the 3.
You are correct.
Okay. Were you still a fan of Balloon Battle?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And I'd be remiss if I did not bring up some of the battle arenas. There's a cookie-themed one. There's a poor man's knockoff version of Block Fort. But then there is a warp pipe level where there are 4 pipes in the background, and you can drive through the warp pipe. It will spit you out from one warp pipe to another exit from a different warp pipe, even though all 4 are very close to each other along the same wall. And it also has some OG Super Mario Brothers looking bricks. A nice retro throwback, if you will. But of course, the star, appealing to the Nintendo fanboy in me, my blinding rose-colored nostalgia glasses that I just cannot get off no matter how hard I yank and pull. There's a battle mode arena that takes place on top of a Nintendo GameCube. You're driving around on the thing.
It reminded me of that marketing presentation of the Nintendo Cube we watched.
Yeah.
Do you remember with however many hundreds of Mario on top?
Yes, exactly. Good point. Like the Mario 128 demo from Space World 2000, and all those Marios are on top of a Nintendo GameCube. Very similar, very good callback that you picked up there. I still would probably prefer to play Mario 128 if that were ever made into a playable product. Looks a bit more fun, because in reality, it's just a flat square with no obstacles or anything. It's purely the aesthetic and the vibe that make me love it so much. You know, it might be more interesting if the GameCube lid was popped up. That way there'd be at least something. You could maybe use it as a ramp, you could hide behind it.
I think you're asking too much for what the technology would have offered at that time.
I'm pretty sure the technology was at a point where they could have had a GameCube in-game with the lid open. It's safe to say that was technically feasible.
Well, write them an email.
Need my time machine first. Okay. That is half of the Mario Kart series down. Now, listeners, you may notice that we're breaking this up into 2 parts. And it might be because I maybe crossed a bit of a line with that last episode that was, 4 hours and 19 freaking minutes? And based on the download stats, I think it's safe to say ain't no one got time for that.
Not even us.
Well, I had to make time for it. I had 6 hours of raw audio from that thing, and I had to listen through it all twice to do the editing process. And it wasn't even a consecutive 6 hours. Those 6 hours turn into 10 to 12 to 15 hours. It is insane how long it takes me. So when we have these behemoth episodes, we're going to be a little bit better, or shall I say a lot better, about spacing them out, breaking them up into more digestible parts, and it will also allow for a steadier release cadence. As opposed to one jumbo episode every few weeks, maybe we can do some normal podcast length episodes, even though this one is still going to be over 2 hours. I'd say that's a bit more manageable than 4 hours and 19 minutes.
It's like chunking an elephant in 2.
How do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time? Is that the phrase?
Yeah.
So next episode, which we are hoping to get out before June 5th, but we cannot promise. Next episode, we will be wrapping up our pre-Mario Kart World franchise examination with 4 more games. We are going to be covering Mario Kart DS for the Nintendo DS. We will be covering Mario Kart Wii for the Nintendo Wii. We will be covering Mario Kart 7 for the Nintendo 3DS. And of course, we will be talking about your current favorite game of all time, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for the Switch, with some notes about what changed from the original Mario Kart 8 on the poor, forgotten, lonely, spat upon Wii U. Do you think there's a higher chance of you enjoying these next 3 games that you haven't played more than the previous 4?
Yeah, it is getting better and better.
Yeah, that's the trend so far.
And it peaks with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
It does. has any of this made you more excited for Mario Kart World, or do you feel like you're going to burn out on the franchise before we even get to June 5th?
I'd just say that since Mario Kart 8 is my favorite, my expectations aren't that high for the next one.
Yeah, you have this opinion that Mario Kart 8 is so good that there's no way Mario Kart World can even really compare, right? It seems like you don't think Mario Kart World has a chance of even being worthy to be mentioned in the same breath as Mario Kart 8.
Not necessarily. I think it has all the chances to be a great game, even greater. But, once I started loving Mario Kart 8, it's hard to switch.
Yeah, and I'm super curious to see because you will be playing a sequel to a video game you love for the first time in your life. For me, that was Donkey Kong Country 2. Talk about a heck of a sequel. We'll see if Mario Kart World can be the Donkey Kong Country 2 to Mario Kart 8's Donkey Kong Country.
We'll play and see.
Remember to hit us up with any questions or comments about the Mario Kart series, or, of course, any Donkey Kong timeline or lore, theories or questions or comments. You can send those in to chat@switch2ludiclore.com. Once more, that is chat@switch2ludiclore.com.
Where the 2 is numerical.
That's right. Of course, it would be a big help to us if you could help get the word out about this podcast, either through a review, preferably a good one, or just telling people. Word of mouth, I believe it's called. You know how those mouths can form words? And those words can spread to people with ears? And then people with ears might put a podcast in those ears, maybe this very podcast? That's what we're looking to achieve, but we can't do it without your help. Here's my goal. No clue if it will happen. This is a medium-term goal, but I would like to have enough of a community to have a small, sustainable Discord channel. Primarily so, Mira and I can play some Switch 2 multiplayer games online with some of you fine listeners. I think that would be awesome and so much fun, but we don't have the numbers to support it yet. So anything you can do to help get the word out, we would be eternally grateful.
So are we looking for our Switch 2 friends?
Yeah. Our Switch 2 friend list needs to be populated.
Please join us.
And finally, yada yada yada, Blue Sky, YouTube, @Switch2Ludic Lore, big deal. All right, we got to get back to Mario Karting. So, remember kids, if you're in a foreign country and somebody hands you a bottle of champagne, just chug it and say, I saw my favorite video game characters do it in a kid's game from 1992.
So are you now encouraging underage drinking like a European?
Oh, no. I'm merely suggesting that the beautiful children of the world take inspiration from their favorite Nintendo characters and do exactly as they did in the Japanese version of Super Mario Kart.
That's a wildly irresponsible thing to say.
Goodbye!
You need to cut that out. I'm serious.